Look here, folks, I got a topic today called Sustaining Your Leadership with Principal L. And of course, if we're talking about a topic where I used his name, Sustaining Your Leadership with Principal L, well, that means I've got Principal L in the building. But before we bring him on the screen, let's see who he is. For those of you who may not be familiar, probably none of you, but if there's that one, let's read this bio. It says Dr. Salome Thomas L. lives in Pennsylvania with his family and has been a teacher and principal since 1987. He's currently a K-8 principal in Wilmington, Delaware, and received national acclaim as a teacher and chess coach at Vox Middle School in Philadelphia, where his students have gone on to win world recognition as 8-time national chess champions. Principal L was a regular contributor to The Oz Show and is the author of the best-selling books I Choose to Stay, movie rights optioned by Disney Films, and The Immortality of Influence, forward by none other than Will Smith, which stresses the importance of leadership, mentoring, parenting, and services to others. He is also the co-author of Passionate Leadership, Improving School Cultures, Building a Winning Team, Teacher and Principal Recruitment and Retention for Change, Teacher and Principal Retention. Dr. L speaks to groups around the country and frequently appears on C-SPAN, CNN, and NPR radio. Principal L has studied at Cambridge University in England, Lehigh University in Pennsylvania, and holds a doctorate in education leadership from Wilmington University in Delaware. He has received the Marcus A. Foster Award. And as a sidebar, if you don't know Marcus Foster, Google him when we're done. Just Google Marcus Foster, because you need to know who the man is behind the award and thereby the award that Principal L received. So make sure you Google Marcus Foster, a phenomenal principal that went through a whole lot of mess. And we're going to talk about a little mess while we're on here today. So as the outstanding school district administrator, that's why he received the award in Philadelphia and the University of Pennsylvania's Distinguished Martin Luther King Award. Educational Leadership and Reader's Digest magazines recognize Principal L as an inspiring American icon. Let me say it again. An inspiring American icon. Dr. L has also appeared on Good Morning America, which was recent, and the Oprah Radio Network. Without further ado, I bring to the screen the good doctor. Say hello to the audience, my brother.
Listen, I hear you taking that role in there. You sound like Drake taking role like a classroom. You getting everybody in there. But listen, we need to know if you're here. We need to know if you're present. And I like that. And I'm gonna tell you something. You mentioned one name in your roll call, a young man named Nathan Durant. Nate Durant is in the house, you said. Nate Durant is a principal in Delaware. But Nate Durant also was one of my team chess players on that Vox National Championship chess program. So that young man I've known for 30 years.
Wow.
And was an amazing student, taught at my school, and now was a leader in his own right, at his own school in Wilmington, Delaware, and is doing amazing things. That's the power of, that's why sustaining your leadership is important.
That's right.
Because you don't know who you're going to touch. It's going to touch other lives. And then secondly, in your introduction, you talked about how you're on fire. I think they already called the fire department before you even come on, right? So we know you're on fire, but people have to understand that you can't be a tiny spark if you're leading kids and leading adults, right? You have to be on fire. And I learned that from you. You got to be on fire. Even if it's pissing people off to the highest of festivity, you got to be on fire, because there's too many people trying to douse the fire. Now they're using that CRT to try to douse it down, but it ain't. It's like Ohio plays, baby. Fire.
There you go.
We're on fire, baby. Let's get it going this morning.
Let's get it going. Hey, man. Hey, y'all, listen here. Hit that share button. Hit that retweet. You know, I typically go over 12. We got a lot to talk about, man. This is just a service to the masses of people that check in. Let me tell you something. I met Principal L in the summer of 2003 at Fordham University at a principals conference. You remember Dr. Vincent Stallings was with us a few weeks ago. Well, he was there too. And some other folks that you probably know, who we were just young guys, trying to find our place, find our niche, carve out our niche. And here we are. But I met him there. And I don't know if I've ever said this to you, L, but I'll say it now live. that it was hundreds of principals there, but the loudest voice, the most vocal voice in that room. This is why I met him, because everyone knew he was there because he was vocal, particularly when we was in that large. Remember, we was in the large auditorium, all this, and your voice, you were way across the room from us, but we all noticed you, right?
And, you mean I was louder than you? Come on, man.
Yeah, man.
Come on. We're going to start our own show. Come on, man.
We've been rocking ever since. So here we go. I got these questions, man. You know, I choose to stay. It came out like right in that vicinity, and I got my hands on it when it was red hot and read it. And you know, that's
actually came out in 2003, actually.
Yeah, right there. So here's the thing. I want to go back to when you were very young. You were a production assistant with the Philadelphia 76ers, but you were interviewing players beyond the 76ers. So to give context to the audience, we're talking about the era of a Dr. J, but Julius Erving, but beyond just 76ers, George Gervin, Bernard King, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, you know, people like that in that era. So my question to you, being around that caliber of athlete and being around that caliber of teams, particularly the 76ers, right? With you being from Philly, and you guys will notice I'm wearing my Philadelphia Stars today. Philadelphia Stars Negro League team in Philadelphia. I say, well, I got L on, let me wear Philly because he's Philly. He's all things Philly, right?
Yes,
so being around them, is there anything, and you wouldn't have known at that time because I don't think you knew you were going to become Principal L. But when you reflect back on it, are there aspects of being around those athletes in terms of being around those teams and what team concept is all about? Were you able to take any of that and transfer it to your leadership as a principal?
I'll tell you, one of the things you mentioned in your opening is you talked about being up early, and I actually I think I put it on Facebook and said, man, I'm up early watching you work and it's making me tired. And I go to something that Derrick Rose said once. He talked about, you know, they asked him like, how do you get ready? You know, like, what do you? He said, man, I prepare. He said, I have 5 P's that I follow. He said, proper preparation prevents poor performance. That's his 5 P's. And I think that's what I learned early on in my career working in television with the Sixers. We would often, you know, interview. We sitting in a locker room, but you know, these guys, they're soaking in the ice, and people don't know what these for. I used to watch Chris Mullin take like 10 minutes to tie his shoes because he would tape and he would tie, he would restring, tie, you know, because this is the preparation, because we see the performance, but this is the preparation. And I remember Michael Jordan would often talk about how he left college early, but he had promised his mom he's going to graduate.
That's right.
And he went back and, you know, he went back and finished. Vince Carter promised his mother he would graduate and wanted her, and she wanted to attend his graduation. And Charles Oakley and some of his teammates, this was when he was in Toronto, they called him a mama's boy, right? Because he was going to miss a game to make his graduation. You know, what his mom said, listen, I'm old school. I ain't like these mamas you dealing with now. You know, I know they got to leave their child behind, but our parents believed in leave no child with her behind, right? Yeah, and it worked. Yeah. So, and Vince Carter was on the campus at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And his mom watched him graduate. She said, you're an athlete, but you're a student athlete. And student comes first. And there are millions of children who need to see you. So I think what I saw was these were millionaire athletes, but they always talked about their former coaches, their teachers, their principals. Many of them were raised by grandmothers, right? They, you know, they never forgot where they came from, but I also saw how they prepared. I remember Charles Barkley when I was like, Charles, I think I'm gonna get a master's, become a teacher, because you know when I went to a high school to speak about my job in television, and the kids were like, you can come in and motivate us. How come you aren't a teacher? Like if your teachers helped you so much, changed my life, bro. Like I'm sitting like, why am I not a teacher? And I remember telling Barkley like, I'm gonna get a master's degree in teaching it, and he said like, if you're gonna get a master's degree, I got enough money to buy my own college. Who has more power? Right. And I said to myself, you know, if I was a weaker person, I would let that talk me out of going into education. Yeah. But I said, but you know what? That's the reason. Now, he was joking, of course, but that's the reason why I needed to go into this business. And I'm almost sure you and I started teaching around the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I became a principal in 99. When did you become principal?
Same year, 99.
I'm telling you, God put us on this path, brother, to be able to bless these children, but also these leaders, because that has to be our legacy, bro. And sustaining it is the key.
That's it. I love it. I love it. Let me jump into these questions. Number one, hey, listen, folks, because you guys, those of you who've been with me all these weeks, you know, I tell you how many, I got 10 questions, but you know, Principal L is the one answering them. So we might go a little bit over. So just stay with me.
I'll try to start. That's what you get for inviting a wannabe preacher on here with you, man. But I'm going to try to keep it light.
Here we go. Number one, your teaching career is storied and is legendary, rooted in this idea that you had about chess, the game of chess, starting at Vox Middle School in Philadelphia, where you became a national chess powerhouse. I want you to talk to us about why you included, or talk to us about including why you saw chess as something significant for young people, and how you took that to just that level that you did.
Yeah, so Vox is in the, you know, I see people out there from Philly. I see Greg saying, you know, Julius Irving. You know, we got a lot of Philly people out there, man.
Yeah.
But Vox was in a very troubling, troubled community, like many in Philadelphia, right near Temple University. And in the community, and I worked there for 10 years, and in 10 years, we lost almost 20 young people in that community to murder. That young man, Nate Durant, who's on this with us right now, he lost a good friend as a teenager to gun violence. So I had to find a way to teach these young people, because they were good kids, that they could choose the behavior, but they can't choose the consequences. Yeah. So I started teaching some special education students mathematics on the chessboard, because Vox had a storied history of chess before I even arrived, but the coaches had moved on to the suburbs and other schools, and the program had died. And I gathered up Nate and some other players and said, look, I want to start this program back up, because I need to teach critical thinking skills. And, I had kids, and I would go get, like Nate had gotten into a fight. And I said, look, I'll make a deal with you, because, back then kids would beg you not to suspend them. They ain't like these kids today. And I said, join my chess team. I won't suspend you. He said, man, you can't jam me up. I said, listen, you don't join my chess team. Because I knew him. I knew he had that kind of mind. And I said, you don't solve problems by fighting, man. Fight with your brain. And I started recruiting me. And, these special ed kids started beating me. And I'm thinking I'm giving them mathematics, but I gave them intellectual capital, Brother Kafele. So they were walking around the school carrying chessboards, and other kids were like, you play chess? Aren't you in the learning disabled program? And they said, yeah, let's play a match and see if you should be my roommate, right? It humbles you. And, so all the kids started playing, and I really saw how I really was teaching children to become resilient through losing, because when you play chess, you will never be the best player in the room when you're learning. So it humbles them. They learn early on. Failure is when failure becomes normative, resilience becomes second nature. And so they were losing and losing, but I knew they would become better. Then they start winning, beating all the elementary, middle schools. Then they start beating all the high schools. Then they beat Bucknell University's chess team, Wow. And then the media got involved. But I realized it was the critical thinking, the problem solving, the seeing around the turn, in Jersey City and Newark and East Orange. You can't just see the turn. You got to see around the turn. You know who's driving a stolen car. You know what house they're selling drugs. So these children have to make decisions on the fly. And chess gives them, and it builds that intellect early. And that was my goal. My goal was to get them into Penn State and not the state Penn. That was my goal.
There you go. I love it. I love it. Good stuff. Good stuff. You guys leave those comments. I see them coming. Leave those comments coming, because I read them later on. I'm sure Principal L will do the same. So, from Vox, you went on to Reynolds, and I want you guys to really hear this question. The focus, for those of you who are joining for the first time, the focus of this academy is always the assistant principal at the core, but I recognize that all levels of educators and even non-educators join in every week. So I want to make sure that we're relevant for the commissioner, for the superintendent, for the principal, for the teacher that has no interest in administration, for the person that has no interest in education at all, or even the aspiring leader. So with that, I want you to hear this question. I want to read it to you the way I wrote it. I said, Principal L, you went to Reynolds Elementary to become the principal. somewhere within your tenure, you took a stance, as I did. Within my tenure, that's one of the parallels between you and I took a stance where my values were being tested, right? So you took a stance. Talk to us about surviving school leadership when your leadership reality conflicts with your leadership values, right? And if you want to go into any specificity, that's on you, but I worded it in a way if you just want to address because everybody on this call is in leadership, there will be that moment, right? It's not a might, it's not a may, there will be that moment when your leadership reality and your leadership values are not on the same page. And now you got to make a decision. Floor is yours, Principal.
Yeah, I am. So I'll give just a little bit of the backstory from my AP journey. Is I was a teacher at Vaux, and this is how the whole I choose to stay story got started. I got a call from the superintendent, the chief of staff. I'm calling for the superintendent. We want you to take an assistant principal job at another school. It's a Friday. We want you to start on Monday. And I'm like, I can't leave these kids. I tell these kids it's not about the money. They always tell me, you only here for the money, Mr. L. And I tell them, we don't make no money, y'all. So I ain't here for the money.
Yeah.
But the idea was I turned the job down. And then kids were like, thanks for choosing to stay. And that's how that whole mantra, got started, decided to write a book about it. But I became an AP at Vaux. I waited, I stayed. My sustainability as a teacher allowed me to be patient, wait for my blessing. I got the AP job, wanted to become a principal, but I didn't want to leave my chess program, wanted to impact the same community. Principal job opened up 1 block away. I applied, I received it. So now I could have a chess program in the elementary and middle school. So that, because here's the thing, so often administrators do great things in schools. And I'm not saying I was doing great things. There are thousands of you out there doing it. And immediately they get moved with no sustainability, no continuation of the programs. Then you get a lackluster leader that comes after them. Programs die, teachers leave, and kids suffer. So we've got to find a way when we get these administrators who they come into this academy every week and they get these jobs. As soon as they just start doing good things, we can't move them somewhere else. Right. We got to help them stay. And so I wanted to stay in this school. I didn't want to be one of those that got moved. I'm there for a couple of years. Test scores rise a little bit, but enough for the district to say we're happy. Children, feeling safe. Parents are, actively involved. We're having staff. We're having PTA meetings in the community room in the projects, right? So because everybody can't come to the school, so we're coming. So I was trying to be innovative, and then for some reason the school district said we're moving you to another school, and I said, listen, I'm the only Black male principal in this community. We have 4 elementary schools that fed in the vaults. I'm the only Black, not only Black male, the only Black principal in these elementary schools. Why are you moving me? Well, you're doing great things. I said, no, I don't want to move. So they said, no, principals don't tell us they're not moving. I said, well, have the superintendent call me and tell me to move. So they said, well, if you don't move, we're going to terminate you. I said, there ain't no way in the world they're going to terminate Principal L. These folks not that crazy. Brother, they sent me a termination letter. I was terminated from the school district of Philadelphia because I refused to leave my kid. They were only moving me, not for bad performance, because they wanted me to go somewhere else. And so to shorten the story, I fought it. The superintendent got involved, gave me a job in central office, which I hated. I asked them to move me back into a school. They did. They were spiteful and moved me to a school that was closing at the end of the year. And I ended up taking over a struggling charter school in Philadelphia back then. But the idea for me was I had to take that step. They wouldn't give me my school back because they wanted to save face. All the folks that wanted to get rid of me. Because I said the headline in the New York Times is going to read, the principal who chose to stay told to leave by Philadelphia. And that's the only reason why they gave me a job, but they would give me my school back. And I felt some type of way about that. And that led to my move from the Philadelphia, school district. But as you said, my values didn't line up with my reality. And I had to take a stand, as you did as well, as many of them. And oftentimes that's going to happen multiple times. As you know, it happened recently in 2017 for me. Yeah. But you got to stand up, and your staff, as long as the staff know that you stand with them and for them, they're going to stand up with you.
Yeah, let's stay there for a minute, y'all. I'm only on question 2, but listen, let's stay there for a second, y'all. Let's stay there. I mean, this because there's somebody out there watching right now. I know you're out there somewhere. I just don't know who you are, but there's somebody out there right now, and you're in this situation, right? And it's probably not even one of you. It's probably many of you that as you're trying to forge ahead, because you came into this business for a certain reason, you have a certain why, a certain purpose that drives you, and here you are, and now you've got this roadblock because who you are. Like, you don't want to compromise your values, your integrity, right? So now you've got a certain reality, but you've got certain values. You have to make a decision. And I didn't pose this question for you to become a rebel. That's not my intent, because that would be reckless on my part. And I'm talking to someone in the audience now. My purpose of posing the question is for you to get a perspective from Principal L, but to realize that you're not in this alone. We all deal with this, and particularly those of us as Black men. We're always confronted with that reality or that reckoning that what I'm dealing with runs counter to who I am. So you're going to have to reconcile that. And sometimes it's going to be reaching out to people like us. Sometimes it's going to be reaching out to people in your circle, but having that conversation so that you can figure it out and make the best move. You know, my move was a radical move, which is comparable to L, but that's consistent with our personalities. Your personality may be different, and you got to do it the way you got to do it. But I wanted to bring that up because I know that there's somebody out here watching right now, and you are in a situation like that, and you trying to figure out, what am I going to do? I want to be Principal, but I got to be me. I can't be somebody else. With that said, let me go to this third question. So you're now at Thomas Edison in Wilmington, Delaware, and have been in this business for years, this business of leadership, this business of teaching. With all the options that you have, why do you choose to stay, considering who Principal L is and what you've accomplished? Why do you choose to stay, and how have you sustained a high level of leadership success for such a long time? Because that's not easy to do. Jump on in here.
It's not. And I make that choice, and it's a choice. And so I want to be clear with people, when we talk about choosing to stay, we're not shaming anybody who decides that this profession is not for them. We're not shaming anybody who decides that, listen, this my health is not, because with the way teachers and administrators were treated during this pandemic, I'm shocked there are more who are leaving. You know, we really found out as educators how much the public and some folks in society really, really support us. But what I love is that we supported each other, and I make that choice to stay because there are people who made that choice for me. There was a meme going around where somebody said, I left teaching and started bartending. I work less hours and make more money. And I commented on it and said, that's great. And I appreciate that person finding their passion. But I'm glad that my teachers that I had when I was young didn't leave and become bartenders. Yeah. Because I am who I am today because they hung in there. Now, teachers need to be paid more. They need to be treated better. Administrators need to be supported more, paid better. I'm on board with that 1,000%. But the idea is that if we don't stay for our children, who's going to teach our children? How are we going? We need to start building our own schools. How are we going to do that? And it's hard. So we know this is God's work. But the idea is that can't happen unless we make that choice to stay. And I think people make that choice when they realize that this job, I never took this job because I thought it was going to be easy or because all I wanted to do was teach and lead. I think when educators realize that I'm a learner as much as I'm a teacher, they become more comfortable with overcoming these obstacles, because when you're a learner, you make mistakes. You come back from failure. Yeah. Building resilient kids is not about teaching them how to be successful. It's about teaching them how to respond when they're not successful. You and I were talking about, Giannis in the Milwaukee Bucks. How many years did he fail and struggle? He didn't give up. That's why he cried, man. He cried. He was happy, but he cried because he finally made it. I did it. I didn't give up. And that's exactly what teaching and leading is about. Is we make that choice. It's a bold choice. And that's a shout out to my brothers down there in South Carolina. Bold leadership. Make the bold choice. Be bold, because when you make it bold, you're making gold. And that's the key. Those people stay for us. We have to stay for them, and also for other leaders. Since we talk about sustaining our leadership, how are we going to create other leaders if we don't make that choice? That's why I'm there. A couple years ago, I was fighting for higher salaries for my teacher, and my board tried to fire me then. But you know what? My teachers walked out. They backed me up. And some of those teachers I had written up, we didn't get along, but you know what they said? That man had my back because I have a job and he's fighting for higher salaries for me. And my 5 board members ended up resigning. I was good. They got the raise. And that's the kind of leader. Now, I'm not advocating for folks to go out here and get fired and get terminated. All that. That's not what we're doing, folks. Right. We want you to make, because you got families to feed. And the supermarket don't want to hear that you went out and tried to be brave. You want to be ram, bro. Okay, they don't want to hear that. But what I'm saying to you is that I make that choice because it was made for me, and also because I love when those young people come back, brother. Now, this week has been tough because we lost 2 young people, former students. Really? 116, 121. One was murdered, and then one took his own life. And so my teachers are really in a tough place right now because, but what I said to them though? I said, listen, we knew when we took these jobs that this was going to happen, right? We didn't know when, but what I want you to think about is how many of these deaths do we prevent? How many more would there be if we didn't choose to stay, if we didn't make that choice? Now we're wrapping our arms around these families, but we're wrapping our arms around these children who are friends with them because now we're worried about them. They're struggling. So you can't do that if you're not there. Yeah. And that's why I'm there, and I'm hoping that I'm encouraging other leaders. My APs who've been there with me for years. When my board tried to fire me, it was my APs like, yo, don't answer the phone, don't come. They had my back. It's amazing what these APs do. And when they become principals, they're so ready. But bottom line is, I'm sorry to give you a 5-minute response to a 5-second question. But I'm there because every year some kid comes to me, and I know God sends them. They come to me and they say, Principal L, you coming back next year? And I said, how can I not come back? Because the kids know you could be doing so many other things, but that we have a choice, and we make that choice to be there with them.
I love it, man. You said so much in that, but you said 2 things that really resonated that you probably just kind of said, but I want to go back and use this for the audience. Listen, you guys in the audience, you heard Principal L say the teachers knew I had their back, right? I want to pose the question to the audience. As you reflect on your situation, your school, your leadership, those of you in leadership, AP leadership, principal leadership, central office leadership, whatever, teacher leadership, whatever it is, can you sit here right now? I got the mirror up. I brought it from Jersey. I got it with me, right? Can you sit here right now looking at yourself in the same mirror, by the way, looking at yourself and knowing within your heart, my staff know that I've got their back, despite whatever the challenges and obstacles may be? Do they realize that, right? Have you structured your leadership in a way that without even having to tell them I got your back, they know that you have it? So that was the one thing that resonated with me that I just wanted to repeat for you guys. But secondly, Principal L said, the teachers, well, us as staff, realizing that we're learners first and teachers second.
Amen.
Right?
Amen, brother.
That resonated with me.
That's the book I'm working on for ASCD that I need you to write the forward for.
Yes, sir.
That's how we're going to take it to the next level.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said that. So you thanks for nominating yourself for my book.
Learner first,
yes.
Teacher second. How we going to grow as an educator and we're not learning? I'm reading every day. I got to be, when I go through the self-reflection and the self-assessment, I got to see that I've learned something today so that I can make the adjustment, right? So that's significant. Let me go to question number one.
Well, here's a question real quick you can ask when you hold that mirror up too. We ask leaders, are your teachers in a learning culture or a teaching culture?
Yeah.
Because in a learning culture, they're supported, like you said, had the back, they're supported, they're motivated. They're not tired, they're inspired. There's so many things that happen in a learning culture that don't happen in a teaching culture. But you go ahead to your next question, bro. Because this might be
I'm reading these comments, man.
Times two.
We got some heavyweights on this thread.
Dr. Marcus Jackson, my girl Ty Sloan, and my man Witt. They on here, brother.
They on here. Here, question 4. This is a big one, y'all. A central component of your leadership. I'm talking you specifically as it relates to children, as it relates to staff, as it relates to your leadership is what you call the 4 C's. Elaborate on. I know you need a whole lecture to do the 4 C's because I've been there, right? So just give me the synopsis. What's the 4 C's and
why you giving me a microphone, bro? I don't know. So listen, yeah. So when I was a new principal, I had to, so many things you want to do in your building, but I remember sitting in the workshop and hearing a fellow administrator tell me that I had to be focused. Now I had a lot of administrators. My mom passed in 2002. My mother was my teacher. She was the one that taught me into teaching and told me when I became a principal I was making a bad move. She said, "Who wants to supervise grown folks? Who wants to supervise adults?" But she said, if you're going to be a good principal, don't be arrogant, because arrogance is the Achilles heel of the school leader. My mom was a paraprofessional in our school. But my mother told me, when you're listening to these jokers, eat the fish and spit out the bones. Because I had some administrators give me some advice, man, made no sense. So for me, I had to develop some areas I wanted to focus on. So my 4 C's were that I had to make sure that every child has somebody crazy about it. That every kid in that building, there's so much research that when you talk to students who have high rates of discipline issues, when you ask them, do you have an adult in the building you're connected with? The majority of them say no. If our kids have somebody in that building who they know they can count on, that they can connect, somebody they can talk to who's not in the staff lounge telling their business, who's not in the classroom putting their business all out front. Just that one person, that those children will find a way to become more successful. Every child is somebody crazy about it. Number 2.
Hang on, because I want to make sure they caught that C now. So you said crazy.
Crazy
right?
about
is the word crazy, right? So that youngster has somebody in that building that's crazy.
Right. Not just I like you. You know what I tell kids? This is what I used to tell kids, and it messes them up when I tell them that. I loved you before I even met you. So you could cuss me out. You can call me bald head, want to be Joe Clark, whatever you want to call me, right? Because they call me all kind of names, right? When they get mad. But I said, but it's still not going to stop me from loving you. And see, for so many of them, they're not accustomed to that. It's like, you still love. Yep, don't matter. When you go home, you come back tomorrow, I'm still going to love you. And so when you're crazy about a kid, that means you love them without exception and you love them without expectation.
I love it.
Love them until they get ready.
So let me, before you go to the 2nd C, let me hit the audience now. Hey, audience out there, leaders out there, do you know the mirror is up? Do you know that your staff, that your students, each, not all, each, I always make the distinction, that each of them know that there's somebody in that building that is crazy about them. See,
that's a game changer.
Leadership capacity, that may not come up in grad school, right? But that's part of your leadership to ensure that every youngster in that building is loved by somebody, but to use the language of Principal L, that there's someone that's absolutely crazy about that youngster.
Or even a higher power, Sister Rita Pearson, who said to us profoundly, every child needs a champion.
That's right.
They need that. That's what it's all about. And for you leaders out there, most times that's gonna be you. You might have 200 of them because they know where you keep the snacks in your closet. They know where you keep the extra clothes. They know where the iron is when they need you to iron it. When they iron it, they know when I need something that I'm coming to see that principal or that assistant principal or that teacher who had, that teacher brother we used to have where you come up there after school and the parent looking for their kid and you go and you tell the parent the kid ain't in the school. You go up there and the kid in there studying. Like, yo, what, y'all don't want to go home? Because that teacher loves them, crazy about them, champion, and they want to be in their presence. That's what our children need, and that's where we have to get to, brother.
That's it. I love it. Hit that 2nd C.
The second one is we have to be curious about their lives outside of school. And get this, you talked about the importance of being a learner, right? You can't be a learner if you're not curious. So if you're not curious, you into yourself. But when you're curious, and I said curious about their lives outside of school. Think about this. When that pandemic hit, the adults in our schools who knew about our children's lives outside of school, man, they shifted immediately and made sure the children had, because they didn't have to ask questions. Do you have this? What's going on here? Where they knew who was homeless. They knew who lived in a hotel. They knew who was living with other families. I had teachers who came to me and said, Principal, well, you only sent 2 computers to that family. There are 5 kids from our school in the household. I'm looking at the paperwork. No. They say, yeah, it's not in the paperwork. See, I'm learning. I'm learning from them. They're like, it's not in the paperwork. It's 3. They're separate families, but they all live together. I said, oh, we gotta go drop. And the teacher said, look, I'll go drop it off. I took a picture and posted it on the internet because I wanted people to see the teacher loaded up with the stuff to take out to the family. So as leaders, we gotta listen, folks. We have to be learners, but we also have to be curious, because that's how we learn and that's how we know what is going on. So curious about their lives outside of school, but also curious about what we need to do to become better leaders, sustain our leadership so we can have a lifelong impact. Lifelong learner for lifelong impact.
I love it. Hit that 3rd C. I love it.
The 3rd C is the children need consistent adults in their lives. They need consistency in the classroom. They need parameters. They need structure. Now, so when I was a new principal, I was telling my staff, they're going to tell you they don't want that. But I'm telling you now, the first time you change your routine, they're going to come say, oh, we didn't have to do that today, or I don't have to do, or where were you? I didn't see you. Because they are accustomed to, they want that structure. You know, they want that, because the discipline is a form of love, and they know it. So they won't say it. They'll sometimes slip up, because in school they see us as their parents. Sometimes they slip up and call us mom or dad. You know, I had one little kindergarten girl call me Pop one day. I suspended her for 41 days. Said, don't you ever call me Pop. You know, but that's the feeling they have when you're crazy about them, and they know you're curious about their lives, and you're providing consistency. And here's what's powerful, brother. When you have some consistent males that are, because you know the male is absent often in society, but when you have consistent males in your school, when I walk in schools and I see principals who make sure that, and not just any man, strong men who give healthy love to children, when I see that, I'm like, okay, this is somebody that's really trying to have a profound impact, because see, those men are going to protect those children and those women, you know, in their schools. So they need consistent adults, not principal after principal. And see, this is the problem with sustainability in our school district, bro. So this is something a little bit for our superintendents out there, not being critical, but we don't do a good job as a system of sustaining leadership. Principal, we have some schools that principal after principal after principal after principal. You're not going to be able to have an impact on children and teachers when we don't have that leadership there. We've got to find a way to impact those schools by making sure we support those administrators so they don't leave. Making sure that we find out from them, how committed are you before you take this position, because this leadership work is not easy. These children will keep you on your toes and your knees every day. But consistency in the classroom, in the building as the leader, and in the community. People in the community want to see you. You know, you remember when you were principal at high school, they loved it. You know, they love it. And then when they don't see you, like, hey, I ain't see your car today. Well,
we're working.
They know, because they look out for you. You know, it's amazing, man, that relationship.
That's right.
Relationships that develop from the consistency.
Well, you know something, before you go to that 4th C, I highlighted this young woman purposely right here, Shamin Brown. Mm-hmm. She's an adult.
Boom. She said, boom. She must be one of your disciples.
That's one of my former students, but she said boom when she was in middle school, but she said boom on what you were saying. Okay. And I highlight her because just thinking about everything you just said, it's easy for former students, and you know this, to come onto our pages and say that you're a fraud, that everything you preach, I had you as my principal. That's not who you were, but you and I don't deal with that, right? I've talked to Shamin for years over the years, since she graduated as an 8th grader. And I know I can say this definitively, that there's no way in the world that she would say, I'm running around here faking the funk, right? You got to know funk to know what I just said, folks in the audience. If you don't know Paula Funkadelic and Bootsy Collins, you Google it, and then you'll know what I just said, right? So, and see, I remind folks all the time, your children are going to become adults one day, and they're going to reflect. They're going to remember who you were.
Yes.
Therefore, you got to always be cognizant of the fact that they're making a record of everything you say, everything you do as it impacts their lives. So be conscious of that as you move on within your leadership, because you're going to run into them again, as I run into Shemaine and all her classmates on a regular basis in social media. I love what you just said, man. Could go into that 4C.
Well, before I do, I'm gonna give you a C before that one. I'm gonna give you a confession. I'm gonna be Usher today, right? There are gonna be some young people that probably gonna come on social media and say, your principal took me in a room and, he had to talk to me man to man, he had, he might have had to get a little close to me, but I needed that. So I'm gonna tell you right now.
That's what I mean. That's it. That they said, look, I needed that. I didn't know I needed it at the time, because I get those all the time. Like Kafele took me to the side. I didn't know at the time, but now I'm 30. Now I'm 40. Thank God he did.
Right.
I don't know where I'd be today. I hear that all the time. Yeah. Or they'll say, Principal Kafele, you were woke before the word existed. You were putting your job on the line for us. I didn't know that. I had 30 and 40 to understand what you were doing back in them days, right?
Yes,
so that's the kind of stuff I mean when they come into their own and realize,
right,
that we were right there.
When I had that issue with my board a couple years ago, when I was fighting for those high salaries, there was a whole bunch of my former students who came. There was a big rally that parents held in my support, and a whole bunch. And one of them was Brian Jennings, a heavyweight champion. He was there. I mean, I said, yo, you didn't have to come. He said, man, I had to come. He said, I didn't realize when I was young what you were doing. He said, but now I see what you were putting yourself for. They came. I mean, it was amazing for me to see those young people. And I was in Delaware. They came from Philly. We had to come support Mr. L. We saw that online, because they, like you say, they don't forget. Right. They don't forget. Right. And children emulate what they see.
They storing that information. It ain't going nowhere.
So my last C is culture. That we must develop school cultures where students feel loved, where students feel supported, where and classrooms are engaging, challenging, rigorous, and joyful. And the key is the word joyful, because when they enjoy learning, here back to that word learn, because the students are learners, and when they realize that we're active learners as well, then they're all in, right? They're all in. But when they enjoy school, when they miss that school bus, they call you, don't they? They call your cell phone. They don't say, man, I'm going back. They call, one of y'all need to come pick me up. I missed the bus. And I said to myself, wow, these kids, they call, and they're calling my cell phone. I'm like, you calling the principal? Like, I mean, they're bold with it. Like, yeah, I need a ride. I need a ride. I just love how our children enjoy what they're experiencing, even if it can be challenging at times. But the fact that they know that they have that support, I think that's what we need. So we need cultures of love and learning and support. But we also, here's the thing, but we need cultures now where we have leaders who understand that they're activists, that they're fighting for social justice on a daily basis. You can't teach children who are facing injustice and not fight against that injustice.
There you go.
So that's fighting for, as a leader, you have to be fighting for equity and social justice, for sure.
I love what you just said about activists. I consider myself an activist leader, and I know that you're an activist leader. To the audience out there, I'm not saying that you got to, you're not marching with a sign, you're not protesting. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying your struggle, as Principal L just said, your fight is in your school. Your fight might not be in the streets, right? Your fight might be in the hallway, right? Your fight might be in the classroom. So that bringing that activist spirit, not just educator spirit, but that activist spirit that you want to spark change significantly in their lives. And consistent with that, I'm looking at Corey. Principal Corey Cullington out of South Carolina. I put his name. I put this up here deliberately just now.
And that's a powerful brother right there.
Yeah, and that's the reason. See, he's powerful, and it says this is powerful. I needed this today. That's why this platform exists, right? Because this is not a lightweight principle. It's not some rookie lightweight principle. This is somebody that's doing some big stuff.
That's a heavyweight.
But I needed this today. See, that's why this platform is here. That's why you're here, right? We trying to elevate. Principal L elevate. We trying to elevate leadership in America, right? Let's go. Look, it's 12:51, and I'm only on question number 5. There, come on, y'all. Stay with me, y'all. Matter of fact, hit the share button, hit the retweet button. Let them know we just getting started. Right, here we go. Number 5? How do you build? Yeah, 11:55, 11:52. How do you build?
Some countries, some
know, right? 12:50. That's right. How do you build a culture of quality, productive relations with staff while simultaneously supervising them with the intent of maintaining your authority as principal?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because early on in the conversation we had talked about you held up your mirror. I see you got your designer mirror there from Macy's, and you said, do your staff know you have their back? And what I wanted to say to the leaders, especially, I'm sure the veteran leaders know this, but to those aspiring leaders out there or new leaders, that having their back doesn't mean always telling them that they're right. Doesn't mean when they're wrong, you don't correct them. Doesn't mean you're blowing smoke, because, there's a lot of research that says that when principals are around their teachers, their conversations about their performance is much different than when they're around other administrators. And the teachers have to know you're going to be real. You're not going to be faking the funk. Carla says she missed that 4th C. It was culture, school culture. We need a positive, uplifting school culture, full of love, full of support. But what was my point I was on? On making sure we're supporting those staff members, and it does not always mean that you're telling them they did a good job. They'll get over it. But you deliver it with compassion. See, that's the key, is how you bring it. And then also teaching them, when I give you feedback, it's not for you to react right away. When I give you feedback, think about it. Maybe act on it. If I say to you, I need you to take your time when you're working with this young person. Maybe not yell so much, right? Try not doing it first, and then see if it works, instead of saying, everybody always, so it's, and then here's the bold part about it, right? That's why I love these brothers pushing this bold leadership. Here's the bold part, is you have to be brave enough to tell them what they need to hear and not what they want to hear. The most important job that a principal has in the building, other than building those positive relationships in a safe school, is helping teachers improve their practice. Because I know that the whole message of these meetings you have is, does your leadership impact the academic success of your school? And I may not be wording it right.
No, you cool. You good.
But idea is, if you're not, you're faking the phone.
Yeah.
And sustaining.
Then your nose got to grow.
Right. Sustaining leadership in the end impacts the academic success of your school. But the idea begins with being honest and authentic with people, because if you're not, they're not going to have respect for you, folks. Trust me, they will get over the fact that you told them it wasn't a good lesson, or you were a little, sometimes I have folks come tell me, that this young person was misbehaving in the hallway, and I heard the whole exchange with all in his face. No. I'm like, what you expecting him to do? You back a dog in the court. So we and a lot, and then then you get them privately, and we talk about it, and they say, yeah, I could have handled that differently. It wasn't, that child's fault. But we have to be, and some folks may get mad, some may not even receive it properly. But you know what? That's what leadership is all about. You're not there to get friends. You want friends, you get a pet, right? You're there to change lives. You're there to impact to academic success of these young people. You're there to get results. Anything else is rhetoric, right? You're there. And when I say results, I don't mean test score. I don't mean a standardized test. Here's the thing. Standardized test is the enemy of sustainable leadership. Now, I'm going to put it up. Now, I'm going to bam, bam, bam on you. Standardized testing is the enemy of sustaining leadership, because you can't be creative and to sustain your leadership, you need creativity. You can't be innovative when you're married to a test, right? Assessment should drive instruction. We all know that. So, folks, you talk about being an activist, you need to be out there fighting against standardization, especially for our folks, for our people. Because, you know, we're in the middle of a conversation. We'll just start freestyle rapping. Who gets weaker, the king or the teacher? It's not about a salary. It's all about reality. Teachers teach and do the world good. King just ruled and most of them understood. You love KRS, you know. I mean, so we have to be ready to move on the fly, and standardization doesn't support that. Now, of course, we know we need to be able to measure out the growth of our children. I'm not opposed to that. But having children stressing and teachers stressing about whether they're going to have their job because no, it's not working. And as an activist leader, you need to be out there fighting against those injustices that are impacting your students and your teachers. I'm gonna let you move to your next question. Reverend L is done.
That was some powerful stuff. But you know, the next question ties right into it. You know, you talk a lot about passionate leadership, and even co-wrote the book of that title. What exactly is meant by passionate leadership, and how can an AP, an assistant principal, infuse passionate leadership into their practice of leadership?
Right, and this entire conversation has been about passionate leadership. It's about having that love for what you do, where you don't let the distractions pull you away. It's where you go to bed every night with satisfaction and wake up every morning with determination. That's what a passionate leader does. And a passionate leader also understands that on this journey, I'm learning. So I'm watching my principal, I'm watching other administrators, and I'm also trying to teach others, because if I'm passionate, I'm trying to infuse that passion in my building and on my team. And sometimes you got to upshoot that. Sometimes that administrator above you is not very passionate, not very involved, and then the APs have to carry that weight, you know. And that, a lot of people don't. You know, we were APs, so we know what it takes. Yeah. But APs have a unique role where they are on the ground a lot more than the head administrator. And so when they're that cheerleader, when they're that person who's crazy about those children, they can sort of connect with others. And also, in terms, when you hire folks, you make sure you let them know right away, this is what we do at our school. This is how we operate. This is how we love our children. This is how we respect this is how we respect the culture of the children who are coming to our school. This is how we support, one another. So whether you're an AP or principal, your passion is felt in the building and beyond, because we have to impact the community as well. You can't change a school if you're not trying to change the community. And that's a powerful part of what we talk about. Trying to work as hard as you can, as long as it's healthy. Yeah. Work hard, but also make sure that everybody is carrying their weight. We don't need any passengers. We need all crew.
All crew. So see the bottom line then, thinking about the folks in the audience again, when you go to that interview, for those of you who are still in the interviewing process, then you're not just being interviewed based on what Principal L said, but you're interviewing the school, because maybe this is not a good fit for you, just based on the culture, the prevailing culture in that school. So maybe you need to be somewhere else, because under that title of passionate leadership, in terms of the brand of that building and the brand of that leadership, you may find that that's incompatible with who you are. So you're interviewing the school while the leadership is interviewing you. So keep that in mind. Let's keep it moving. So question number 7, for the past 2 weeks on this platform, we've been discussing the difference between the words influence and control. And you actually wrote a book entitled The Immortality of Influence, your second book. What does this title mean, and how does it correlate with effective assistant principal leadership?
So that book, The Immortality Influence, was a follow-up to I Choose to Stay. And I wrote it because what I realized in the book, I Choose to Stay because there's so many teachers who never hear about the positive stories of their children. Excuse me. Some children don't contact their teachers, right? Some teachers move on and may not be in the community. I wanted those teachers to know that those children you touch are out there doing great things. What I didn't touch on in the book was how important and valuable their influence was on them. And that's why I wrote that second book, because I focused more on and I really touched on the unrecognized influence. That oftentimes we're influencing others and don't even realize it until later on. There's somebody that come back and say, I became a principal because of something you said or something you did. And you're like, wow, I didn't even realize. Or there'll be somebody say, you know, this is a tough school to work in, but I'm still here because you're here. And that's the influence you have. You know, see, you said influence versus control. See, control, people trying to be bosses. That's not what an administrator adds to the ministry. That's what an administrator does. So you because a boss, you're only going to last for so long because a boss needs power. And after a while, the staff knows the power's in central office. And we've had so many principals, we're going to wait you out until they move you on out of here and another one comes in. But when you come and you are influencing people from the heart, see, brother, Dr. Stephen Jones said, comes from the heart. When you're leading with your heart, when you know that when somebody, you got a staff member has a sick spouse or a sick child, and they have to, and you go cover, they're worried about, oh, I can't get nobody to cover my class. You go cover that classroom. When the administrator goes to cover, then that's the influence. Then they're like, wow, if you're doing that for me, how can I not do for these children? How can I not do for my colleagues? Because you just showed me how. You didn't say, well, you know what, you can't leave until we find somebody to be able to. No, it doesn't work. That the influence, and often, and I'm gonna close on this question on this one. Often, it's what we say and how we say it. You can have good intentions, but you gotta think about how you're saying things to people, because oftentimes they can take it the wrong way. So you gotta, and then if for some reason as a leader, we say something to someone and think about it later on and realize we could have said it differently, we can't be too arrogant and go back and say, listen, I want to apologize for that. Yeah. I should have said that. Even in some meetings, I've corrected some folks, or like maybe some people were talking during a meeting, and later on I'll say to them, I didn't mean it that way, but you understand, this is very important to me. And the person said, no, you're right, and I shouldn't have been doing that anyway. But I appreciate you coming to me and saying that. The leadership is about being humble. Leadership is about service. If you don't serve, you can't lead. Not you won't lead, you can't. And if you somehow think service is beneath you, because you have some leaders who think, man, I'm in charge, right? I don't have to serve. Leadership will always be beyond you. We have enough leaders in this world, brother. We don't have enough leadership.
There you go. And you like me on that one. I always make that distinction between leadership and leader. I say when I walk into a building, I want to see the leadership without seeing a leader.
There you go.
Right? Leadership, right? So keep that in mind, folks. We've been moving it right along. This next question is really, you've given so much more than the question that you probably touched to answer this, but I'm gonna still give it to you. Your latest book, Retention for a Change, is subtitled Motivate, Inspire, and Energize Your School Culture. Talk to us about the role of the leader toward motivating, inspiring, and energizing school culture. And I know that we've talked about that, but if there's anything else you want to add to it.
Well, simply, I think that's probably something that often does not get talked about in our graduate school and the training programs, is the importance of the leader to inspire. There are folks who think that they're tired, but really they're uninspired. And you inspire leadership through your actions. Folks, they get tired of hearing your testimony. They want to see your testimony.
Yeah.
People get talking about what they did and what they're going. They want to see it, and they want to feel it. So you motivate folks when they know you have their back, when they know that you support them, when they know you want them to get better, and when they know that you're not afraid to tell them what they need to hear. And also something very powerful for our administrators. If you got 1 or 2 staff members that are doing something wrong, don't make the whole staff pay for it. Address them directly, because you will lose your staff members. You will lose your team when they know they got to keep coming to meetings, keep getting the emails, when you know it's just the same 1 or 2 people doing whatever it is that needs that attention. Address them directly. Remember, with compassion, with love, in a supportive way, until folks start realizing that they just don't. When you know they're not there for the kids, and you know that they can't hack it, that's when it's time for you to give them their jacket. Right now, I'm just putting it to you clear and plain. Now, that may take a while. Now, I'm not saying immediately, because we don't have enough folks lining up to do this. But you can't keep people there for our children when you know they're not there for our children. Right. We have to find a way to make sure that our children have that champion that we talked about. And sometimes that may mean you have to have a conversation. I had a conversation with him when I first started at Reynolds. I had a teacher there, and he used to write these discipline slips about, he was teaching like 1st grade, kids throwing things at him. I said, man, I wish I would let a little talk on you. I said, when we were in school, our teachers made us think they had eyes in the back of their head. Yeah. That's what, and that's what and then we finally realized after a year, he realized this wasn't, and he had been there a few years before me. And he ended up leaving. And his wife wrote me a letter a few years later. And I was scared to open the letter. I said, this lady going to tell me I got rid of her husband. I'm the worst principal with her. Yeah, she wrote me a letter and said, I'm glad you talked to him in them going into. He's working in a different profession. He's found his passion. She said he was so unhappy for years, and none of the principals would ever talk to him about going into another profession. You talked my husband into going to another profession, and he's happy in it. Now, the wife, he didn't write me a letter. The wife wrote me a letter. Yeah. But I was scared to open it, because I was like, Lord have mercy on her. But we have to have that courage to be able to have those bold, honest conversations with folks, man, because our children, the stakes are high. They're high. The stakes, who's that? De La Soul? The stakes are high. So we have to make sure that we're on fire for these children. Blazing. Man, you said a lot there, and I'm looking at the comments. I just put Corey up there, Principal Collington, but folks saying, like the young lady Annie Benson, she said, with your comments are just changing her life. She said she couldn't keep up with the note writing. It's just so much to write. Really? I'm sorry. Yeah. That's so my kids say, Principal, well, you going to. They say you're doing too much. It's just so much nuggets and jewels. But Annie Benson, we gonna do this again. This is not the last time. And Principal L has some things up his sleeve too, by the way. And brother, and also let them know this right here is the beginning, because you and I are gonna be on a big stage somewhere together. Yeah. These conferences, these folks talking about equity and diversity and how they want to. Well, you know what? It's time for you to bring these brothers on here to talk about what we need in education. Absolutely. Hey, y'all, before you guys get out of here, we got 2 more questions. I'm gonna be done. Principal L, what if the principal and the AP are not on the same page, right? This is, I'm sure there's a lot of folks out here that's like, oh, you talking to me now. What if the principal and the AP are not on the same page on a number of issues? What are steps that the AP can take to make this relationship healthier? Now, I'm not asking what the principal can do. I'm going right to the AP. What can the AP do so that AP can function in this building in a toxic situation? Right, because that is the key, because the AP typically in that situation doesn't have the same level of influence as the principal. And I actually spoke about this topic. There's actually a national AP conference that's held down in Maryland, which I didn't realize until I spoke at the conference meeting, and I talked about this and how it's the relationship between the principal and AP has to be one of trust. And my APs, I trust my APs with my life. And so as an AP, if I was in that situation, I would definitely try to broach that subject. And I think also it depends on what the subject is, because in this world that we're living in now, it's some things that folks support. If I don't support, I may not even have that. I may say to myself, it's time for me to move on. Depending on, what you supporting the Proud Boys and all this kind of, it's no conversations going to get me to, move on that. But if it's something that we see that can be worked out, I think that has to begin with a conversation. So I'm going to say this to APs out here, because I've seen this happen. You can't go talking to people on the staff about your issues you're having with the principal. Right. that weakens your relationship. And also because a excellent leader is a good follower. So once you go out doing that, then the folks know I can't trust you, right? So you got, now you can talk to some other leaders, some other administrators, find a mentor. You can reach out to Principal Kafele or myself if you want to. We'll guide you on that. But you have to honor the relationship and try to build it. So you approach that, you approach your principal, and then if you see you're not making any progress, then you may have to reach out to another administrator that might be able to maybe support you to in working that out. But again, you don't want to get to a point where your leadership values are conflicting with your leadership reality, because if they are, it may be time for you to move on, you know. And that's not always a bad thing, because when you move on, that opens up a job for somebody else, but you also get a chance to go and bless some folks, you know, in other places. But that's always the last resort. But please don't stay in a place that's toxic for you, because trust me, you want to be in a place where you're celebrated, not tolerated, and you want to be a blesser and not a stressor.
I love it. I love it. Hey, y'all, it's 12:12. I'm on the last question. I want you to stick around until we're done, and I want to share with you what's happening next week. So before I ask the question, I want to just give me a minute to drop some history, right? And then I want to couch the question into what I'm going to share with you. So hang in here with me for a minute. Back in 1900, Booker T. Washington, you all know him. Booker T. Washington created what was known as the National Negro Business League. This predated the Chamber of Commerce by 12 years. So he created the National Negro Business League in 1900 to bring Black business people, Black entrepreneurs, Black future or aspiring entrepreneurs together to talk about how do we sustain the Black community economically during these times of post-Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896, so now legal segregation. What do we do? So he brought Black business people together, and chapters developed, over 100 chapters across the country. Many of these business people were from Tulsa, Oklahoma. So in 1900, when he launched this organization, these business folks in Tulsa went back into Tulsa, and the first business was created in 1906. And from 1906, there's another business and more business and more business, and where it's over 200. And now you've got what's known as Black Wall Street. You've got over 200 businesses of everything that is needed in the community: supermarkets, drugstores, lawyers, doctors, dentists, banks, school system, hospital, you name it. The dollar never had to leave. So here's the thing. I don't have to talk about the massacre, which I won't, right? We don't have the time to do that. I'm talking about how Black Wall Street came into being. Now, what I just did in about less than a minute, I gave you a smidgen of American history, right? American history. I didn't say African American history. I said I gave you a smidgen of American history. But in saying what I said to you, I cannot do it justice if I don't talk about the reasons for the National Negro Business League and the reasons for Black folk to come together and create businesses within the Black community. I can't do that justice if I don't talk about the reasons, and I can sum up the reason in 2 words: race or racism, right? So therefore, to give you that portion of American history, I have to talk about racism. And if I don't talk about racism, then I've done the story, the example I gave you, a grave injustice and disservice. So with that being said, I got a question for Principal L. Question was just, do you have any thoughts that you want to share on the banning of what is called critical race theory, which nothing I just said is critical race theory. And that's key. I did not give you any theory on race just now. All I told you was a portion of American history that did not make its way into curriculum and textbooks. No race theory. So with that said, again, do you have any thoughts that you want to share on banning of what is called critical race theory in K-12 schools in several different states across America?
Right. So what I'll say to you basically, and this is, and everybody needs to understand, I'm sure most of you do. Critical race theory is not taught in K-12 schools, never has been, and it can't be because K-12 teachers don't have the capacity. Critical race theory was developed in the legal world, right? It's entrenched in research, not even taught at the undergraduate level. So we can talk about critical racial issues, but we're not talking critical race theory. That was a critical moment in American history. And when we don't teach our history, like, imagine this, that you would be so ashamed of your history that you would prevent your children from learning about it. It don't work like that, right? We can't get better. We can't be learners if we don't know our history. And my mother taught me, and my mother taught me to see Dr. Ben. We went to see Dr. Jeffries. I mean, we studied all the scholars, but my mother also taught me, she said, you want to learn about your own self, study the history of other people. Yeah. Study the history of other people and find out how they treated your people. And so I'm going to say this. We have lots of allies out there, and we need those folks fighting with us and working with us. And many of them are. But we need to make sure, I mean, you saw the meeting in Indiana they were having, all white men having this panel to talk about teaching race and indoctrinating students. No women, no minorities. But it was canceled because of the uproar. We've got to keep fighting, but also, folks, deal with facts and deal with the truth. Critical race theory has never been taught in K-12 schools, and it never will be. What folks are complaining about, this is their response to the statues being taken down and the fact that their insurrection didn't work on January 6th. We want to teach the truth no matter what, and we have to make sure that we keep fighting that. But it's not what we're teaching is not critical race theory. And I'm seeing it in the comments. We are teaching the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And we can't be silent. As Dr. King said, it won't be our enemies that will remember. It will be the silence of our friends. So we've got to make sure that we're awake on this. And I saw somebody, they say, you Principal, Kafele, you were awake long, before folks had alarm clocks. Right? We can't be asleep at the wheel, folks. We got to make sure that we're teaching these children the history so it does not repeat itself.
There you go. Well, folks, let me tell you something. This has been a solid hour, and some change. It's been a great hour. My soul has been served well, and I'm just glad that I'm just glad for this opportunity to be able to do what we do, which includes bringing on someone as powerful and knowledgeable and influential as Principal L, Dr.
About to pass that bucket around, brother.
I know, right? Yeah, it's a lot of people that want to cash at me all the time, and I don't let them. Yeah,
I was just joking.
They inbox me, and a lot of people say, "Can I send you something?" I said, "No, don't worry about that. We good, right?" But look, Principal L, how can they get in touch with you? How can they learn more about you? What tell us about the books. Tell us about what you do, the website, everything. Let them know.
Yeah, well, they can find me.
Y'all.
Yeah, they can find me at principal.l.com. I'm on Twitter, at principal_EL. I'm on Facebook at Principal L. I'm finally on Instagram, y'all. I'm finally on Instagram at Dr. Principal L. But listen, I'm still there, fighting with my kids every day in school. I'm a principal at Thomas Edison Charter School in Wilmington, Delaware. 2-time national chess champions in Delaware. So we went to another state and started winning national championships. But this time we were pushing chess with our young ladies. And they undefeated 3 straight years, all girls chess team, all Black and Latino chess team. That's the Good Morning America did the story on those girls. 2 of them going off to college, one at University of Virginia, one to Cornell, doing amazing things. So I'm still in the fight. My 35th year, y'all, my 35th year in education, over 21 as a principal. But and I'm just thankful that I've been on this journey with my brother Kafele, because for years we've been doing this as leaders and then as speakers. And it's just so good to know you have a brother that you can count on, have your back, that's out there helping to teach the truth. That's the key. And so I appreciate you. And folks, reach out to me. Follow me. I got a huge I Choose to Stay movement that's going. We just shipped our first shirt to Hawaii. So we shipped the shirt. We got folks in Kenya wearing. One of my former students was wearing one, and the guy walked up to him and said, "Yo, you know Principal L? He hired me as a teacher in Kenya, in Africa, brother."
Wow.
So 40 different states. I Choose to Stay. Reach out to me if you're interested in joining the movement, getting you a shirt or a hoodie to show that message that you're staying for those children. PrincipalL.com, at Principal_EL on Twitter. I will follow you back. Dr. It's my frat brother.
I know Hildebrand is the building.
Love you out there, brother. That's Kafele. That's the most supportive brother in the world, man. He bought the first I Choose to Stay hoodie that was ever made, but buys my books, comes to my lap. I mean, we were principals together in Philly for years, man. Love that brother. And he's a Kappa brother.
There you go. Hey, lastly, before we get out of here and I close out, Principal L, for those that may be new to you and don't realize that you're a speaker, that you do professional development, you do keynotes and all that, let them know again. Well, let me let you guys know that's what he does too. In addition to being the principal, he's a speaker. He speaks worldwide. So how did they book you?
Yeah, they can go around the website. Now, of course, as a principal, I can't be out there, as much if I was full time. But if I can work it in my school schedule, we'll work it out. But they can go right on the website, contact me, or a lot of people just contact me right on social media. As you know, they just go right into your DM, say, "Yo, I need you to come speak." So if I can fit it in, I'll do it. If not, I'll do something virtually. But reach out to me. Even if you don't want me to speak, even if just reach out and say hello, encourage, because we have to connect. And folks, use your social media, build your networks. You got folks that will support your school, they'll support your journey as a leader. Some of them will offer you a job. I get principals to say, "Hey, some APs looking for a job," and develop your networks on social media, folks. That's what I know you learned that on the virtual AP Academy. I know it. So let's go.
There it is. Well, Principal L, I thank you immensely for this hour and some change. And we're going to do it again. Stay there for a minute while I close out. Hey, folks, next week, we got Principal Merlina Valentine. She'll be right here in the building with me, and it's going to be dynamite. She's on right now, so let some folks know. You're going to be inspired. You're going to be inspired by this story, man. You might want anybody in the house that's not even in education. They need to hear this story. Right. So just be here with us. The topic is going to be called resilience. Right. So just come on through. Once again, the equity, where we at here in the camera, the Equity and Social Justice Education 50 by me. This is my 12th book. Critical questions for improving opportunities and outcomes for Black students. So this is available wherever books are sold. So get your hands on it. Go to principalkafele.com for all the podcast interviews and the videos and the books and the blog posts and the articles. Everything is there. Subscribe to my YouTube Virtual AP Leadership Academy channel so you can watch the previous 65 sessions of this. It's not just live, but you can watch the recording anytime, and then follow and like my Virtual AP Leadership Academy Facebook page. Lastly, your diet. Some of you are my Facebook friends. You saw me on that treadmill last night with my wife at 8 o'clock at night. I flew 6 consecutive days, slept on average 4 hours, but I still found time, made time to get on that treadmill because I want to live. I had the heart attack. I got to do it, right? So you may not have had a heart attack. So get on it so you don't have one, right? So get on that treadmill, eat right, take care of yourself. I won't preach to you about about vaccine, but I will preach to you about this. I'll preach this sermon. Put this bad boy on, right? Because some of these folks in these audiences, they want to get up close to me. I mean, that's cool. We take a picture, but sometimes y'all got a cough coming, man. And you right there with me, and you want to cough near me, and I see that. Yo, hold up, right? So put on the mask, right? And just take all of the CDC COVID precautions, and we should be good. Look, y'all, I can't wait to see you next week at 10:55 EDT, Eastern Daylight Time. So in the meantime, have a great week. Have an extraordinary week. Have your best week yet. Peace.
Peace out.
Peace.